Good morning. Today is Sunday. My name is Jen. I'm an author and book reviewer. If you're new, hello, welcome to the channel. I'm not going to hold this very shakily for much longer. This is a very brief intro to say I want to start a new reading vlog today, and I want to do something I've done a couple of times before, trying to find a new favourite thriller, which I find quite a difficult thing to do for many reasons, which I'll talk about in a second. But what I want to do first is to grab all the unread thrillers from my shelves. We're going to sit down, I'm going to go through them, talk about what I'm looking for. Oh, sorry, that was quite shaky. And then we're going to dive into a reading vlog over the next week or so where I read as many of them as possible and talk to you about them. Okay, let's go raid my bookshelves. Probably missed a couple, so there are 22 here. Let me whiz through them all. I'm obviously not going to read all 22 in this video, but I don't want to set a strict TBR for myself. I basically just want to use this as a loose TBR, these 22 books, and over the course of the week I'll read whichever ones take my fancy. So first off, we have Claudia Pineiro's book All Yours, which is a thriller. I have read two of her books before. I adored Eleanor Knows. It was my favourite book of last year, and I didn't like Thursday Night Widows, which was a thriller of hers that I read. But I have been informed that this one seems to be liked by many more people than Thursday Night Widows. I was going to save this for a Giving Authors a Second Chance vlog, but she has a new book coming out in a couple of months, so I'll read that for that one. This is a thriller. I think it's about a wife who sees her husband doing a crime and she has to decide what she wants to do with that information. It's translated from the Spanish by Francis Riddle, and Claudia Pineiro is an Argentinian author. Then we have this, which I've been umming and ahhing about keeping because I've heard such mixed reviews. This is The Last House on Needless Street by Katrina Ward, and I have heard that the mental health representation in here is not so good. So I may sample read some of this, and if I just think, no, it's not for me, then I'll at least know and I can decide whether or not I'm going to keep it on my shelf. Then we have Vanished by Lynda Plante. I read loads of her books about, I want to say 15 years ago. I kind of inhaled them and they were a bit stereotypical crime, as in, you know, a DI who's recently divorced and drunk and has a crush on one of his female colleagues, but it hit the spot at the time, and I'm hoping that maybe they've evolved since then. This is, I think, the first one. I bought Buried first, and I think I found out that was the second one. Either Buried or Vanished is the first in a new series. It says, when an eccentric widow claims she's being stalked by her former lodger, Detective Jack Wall is the only person who believes her wild claims. One for the TBR. This one, well actually, let me get all of the books by authors I have read from before, because I have a couple here. Alright, so these are all authors I've read from before. We've got Penance by Eliza Clark. This is coming out in the summer and is about a true crime podcaster. Lucky by Rachel Edwards. I read her debut, Darling. Liked it but didn't love it. But this is her latest one and I thought I would check it out. It says someone is watching Etta, footsteps in the night, the security light coming on at strange hours. Is it all just curtain twitching neighbours who seem to monitor her every move, or is her little online problem making her paranoid? I'm not sure if this next one is a thriller in the true sense of the word, but it definitely has a mystery element to it and someone has died. So I've put it in this pile, and this is Amrita by Banana Yoshimoto, which is translated from the Japanese by Russell F. Warsden. This is about a celebrated actress who has died in mysterious circumstances, and she leaves behind an unconventional extended family, and then we're spending time with them. I don't think I'm going to read these next two in this video because they're part of two series and I really love them, but given that they're the second and the third books in two separate series, it seems a bit redundant because I already know that I love those series, but I thought I'd mention them in case you're looking for recommendations. So this is The Stories You Tell by Kristen Lepionka. This is the third book in her Roxanne Weary series, which is really great. And then this is Heaven My Home by Attica Locke, which is the second book in the Darren Matthews series. Both of these are American detective novels, and I tend not to gravitate towards these as much just because, I don't know, I don't like reading about guns, and that isn't really something that is in UK detective fiction. So that's probably why I haven't rushed through both of these, but I do love them. And this, Kristen Lepionka's, is a queer detective story, which you don't tend to see a huge amount of, and I do want to read more Attica Locke in general. In fact, I may check in this video to see whether she has any standalones that I could potentially check out. We have The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. This is her latest. I read the appeal. I raced through it, and I think it was flawed, but I enjoyed the process of reading it. So that's another one I could pick up in this video. And then Nell Pattison is a crime writer that I really love, and this is one of her standalones called Friends Don't Die. I read her series, the Silent series, last year. The first one is called Silent House, and I love the first one in particular. It's a trilogy. I enjoyed all of them, but the first one was particularly brilliant. One of the reasons that I loved Nell's writing so much is because she's writing from an Own Voices deaf perspective. She started losing her hearing in her 20s, and I find Own Voices disability books for crime thrillers so hard to find. So the fact that I found it and it was a brilliant book was tick, 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 tick. So this is another book of hers. It's a standalone. Speaking of fellow disabled writers, I have two more here. This is Jenny Batchelor's book, My Perfect Sister. This is about someone returning to their family home after a long time. And I've realized I've made a mistake with the other one because I pulled this off my shelf, which is The Choice by Claire Wade. But this is a dystopian. It is not crime thriller. So not for this video, but for another day. One of my favourite crime thriller writers, as you know, is Nicci French, but I have read every single book that they have written, and I made a whole video talking about all of those books. So there are 23, 24 of them. I'll link that video in the description box down below. I particularly love, we all know what I'm going to say, the Frieda Klein series. I am obsessed with those, and she is not a police officer. She is a psychotherapist who works with the police, and that's something I do look for in crime thrillers. A procedural can be great, but I do like an outside perspective, either someone working with the police or a character who is trying to solve a crime themselves. Those happen to be my favourite. And when I was researching a while ago books for fans of Nicci French, these two were listed. So I think I'm going to start with this, which is Close to Home by Cara Hunter. This is about a young girl called Daisy who goes missing, and they think that she may still be somewhere local in the area and may have been taken by someone that she knows. The other one is T.M. Logan's book, The Curfew, which again is about someone going missing. It says Andy and Laura are good parents. They tell their son Connor that he can go out with friends to celebrate completing his exams, but he must be home by midnight. But then Connor misses his curfew, and it turns out that loads of lies have been told. So those two are my potential Nicci French void fillers. That's what I'm going to call them. I saw in Emma's video over at Drinking by My Shelf ages ago, she said that this was her favourite Gillian McAllister book, and I know that she loves Gillian's writing and I think has read all of her books. This is called How to Disappear, and I think this is about a woman called Lauren who's a mother to a girl called Zara. Her daughter witnesses a crime, and the only way to protect her daughter is to run away with her, not even tell her husband, and just flee. So quite different to some of the others. My friend Jo gave me this book because she thought I would like it. This is Sirens by Joseph Knox, and it feels a little bit like a cliche, but I do trust her. And it's about a detective called Aidan Waits who's in trouble. He has made a massive mistake at work. He's been put in a side department, effectively suspended, I suppose, but shoved in a corner where no one can see him. And then I think he thinks he's gonna solve this crime on his own, but no one will listen to him because he's supposed to be out of that particular department. Sometimes tropes work, you know? Then we've got The Serial Killer's Daughter by Alice Hunter. This is not a sequel to her first book, which was called The Serial Killer's Wife. I I checked that with the publisher because this was a copy that they sent to me. They said it's not related. So I'm interested in that because that's bizarre marketing if so. But this is about a daughter who I think is maybe in witness protection. I think her dad was a serial killer, and in the place that she has moved to, this town, murders are occurring that remind her very much of the murders that her father committed. I think that is the premise. It does sound very intriguing. Then we have Dark Pines by Will Dean. This is a book that has disability representation but is not own voice. And just looking at this book, I have remembered that I do have another crime book on my shelves by, I want to say Anne Holt. I think it's a Norwegian book. I will insert it here, but this is another queer detective book. So I do have 22 books. Then we've got this, which is A Will to Kill by R.V. Roman, which is an Agatha Christie type mystery that's set in the Nilgiri Mountains. And a few more proofs here. We have got The Old Woman with the Knife by Gu Byung Mo, and this is translated from the Korean by Chi Young Kim. I'll insert the cover here, but this is about a female contract killer who is considering retirement, and then something happens to change her mind. We're almost finished. This is The Other Mothers by Catherine Faulkner, coming out this summer. This is about a woman who moves to a new area, quite an affluent area, I think, and is trying to make friends with the other mothers at school, but then realizes that something strange is going on. And then this is Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman, which is coming out in July. This is about two women who I think are convicted of a crime and then maybe let loose. And then a crime that happens later is eerily similar, and one of them is maybe involved and asks the other for an alibi. I don't want to know more than that. So those are the 22 books that I will consider reading from over the course of the next week. I'm not sure how many we will get through, but I like to have a large TBR wherever possible. If I make myself a really strict TBR, unless it's for a prize long list video, then I find myself getting a tad too frustrated. So I don't think that this TBR is too limiting. There's a lot to be getting on with, and I will come and chat to you when I have read one of them or part of one of them. As always with my reading vlogs, in between reading I will be cooking some things, taking you on some walks, and that's it. I'm gonna start reading and I will talk to you when I have bookish things to say. Be back soon. Hi, it is the next day and I have read a book. I have read Close to Home by Cara Hunter, and this was one of the books that was listed as being recommended for fans of Nicci French, and I liked this one. I don't think I loved it, and now I have to decide, well, I don't have to decide right this minute, but I need to decide at some point whether or not I want to continue with this series. And at the beginning of this vlog, I said that I sometimes find it quite difficult to find crime thrillers that I love, and maybe I can talk a bit about why that's the case. There seem to be some things that creep up quite a lot within these genres. In particular, fat phobia is quite rife in crime thriller books. The villainy disfigurement trope is used a lot, and I have no time for it anymore. I'm over it. Over it. If you've been on this channel a long time, you know my thoughts on physiognomy and linking villainy and disfigurement, and using that as a lazy marker to show a reader that this person is bad and they have been through things and this makes them angry and now they want to hurt the world. It's very, very reductive. Within police procedurals, I would like some kind of acknowledgement, probing commentary on the problems within the institution of policing. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be there. It can't be a police make everything good narrative. That is boring and unrealistic. And one of the reasons why I love Attica Locke's books so much, because she examines that so well. Okay, so what did I think of Cara Hunter's book? This is a book that is set in Oxford along the canal. It's about a young girl called Daisy who goes missing at a family barbecue. And it does use, let me find you a page where I can show you. It uses interview transcripts, and it uses Twitter conversations and newspaper articles in a way similar to The Appeal, but that isn't the whole book. It's just throughout you will get chunks of documents that you can look through, and I like that because it meant the whole thing felt quite realistic. It definitely added to the pace of it as well, and it felt as though you were doing a bit of the investigating, which is always fun. I'm obviously not going to get into plot too much because I don't want to ruin anything for anyone who wants to pick it up. Was I satisfied by the ending? I felt like I was, and then there was a bit extra that made me not so satisfied anymore. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think it was entirely believable. D.I. Adam Fawley has recently lost a child of his own, and that is not discussed in detail in this book, so I imagine we'll be going into that in more detail in the subsequent books in the series. So I thought that that was a path that was laid out very well for the future, and that obviously meant that that was impacting how he was emotionally responding to this particular case. One more thing with this book, which actually feeds into crime thrillers and their discussion of disability and disfigurement, is that there were a couple of points in this book where I felt really uncomfortable with what characters were saying, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be. Did you hear that? That was thunder. That sounded like a house falling down. Okay, that was intense thunder. Right, what was I saying? Yeah, there were a couple of points in this book where characters said things that made me feel deeply uncomfortable. And I wasn't sure if the point was to make me feel uncomfortable or if just not enough thought had been given to these words. So, as an example, boss, he says, keeping his voice low, I've been watching him for half an hour now, and I have to tell you, I'm not sure the kid's all there. I think he might be, autistic or something. I don't think it's that, I say slowly, but I agree with you. From what I just saw, something is very wrong. I am all for characters saying things that are problematic or that they haven't thought through. That's life and that's realistic, I think, especially in this situation. But I don't want to feel as though the book is upholding those things. Do you know what I mean? And I found that difficult to gauge. But I was looking at reviews for the next book in the series, which was interesting because this review gave me hope. It says, despite tearing through close to home, the first book in the series, I was disappointed by its far-fetched plot, the judgmental, albeit honest attitudes of investigating detectives, and an excess of unlightening Twitter comments. I didn't mind the Twitter comments so much. This follow-up is far darker standard police procedural, grounded in reality, with a much more open-minded approach by the police. In the Dark builds on the characterization of the first novel, with a diverse team of detectives feeling like a more cohesive unit, all working for the same cause this time round. So thank you very much to this reviewer who does not have a name, but I appreciated that review because that's kind of how I felt about this, that sure, all these comments being thrown around the police station may very well be accurate, but I just don't enjoy reading about autism and disability being talked about in these ways if it's not challenged somewhere else in the book. So I may well give the second book in the series a go at some point. It's not one I'm going to be rushing to purchase, especially when I've got other crime thriller books on my shelves, but definitely not a series that I will be discarding. That's the one that I have read so far, and now I think I'm going to go to Claudia Pineiro's book next because it's going to be quite different. This is definitely more of a literary thriller book. So once I have read that, I will come back to you. Hi everyone, it's Tuesday morning. I'm living life on the edge because I've hung out the sheets that I have just washed, but it's scheduled to rain all day. In fact, it's supposed to be thunderstorms all afternoon, but it's not raining yet. What a risk I am taking. High stakes. I'm here to talk to you about books, and then I need to go out for an hour or two to take some photos, and I'll take you with me. But let's talk about books first. I read All Yours by Claudia Pineiro, and I think I said at the beginning of this video this is translated from the Spanish by Frances Riddle. That was a mistake. She translates her other books, but this is translated by Miranda France. And I am so relieved to say that I loved this book so much. I think it's going to be one of my favourite books of the year. The reason why I'm so relieved is because I loved her book Eleanor Knows so much. And then I read Thursday Night Widows, which was a backlist title, and I really didn't like it. And that was a crime thriller book. And that's what she made me write. And I thought, well, maybe I don't enjoy
those books from her, only the more, in quotes, literary ones. But this is a crime/thriller, and I absolutely adored it. I was perplexed when I read the blurb when I bought it, because I felt as though it was one of those blurbs that gave everything away, because it says on the back that Inez is a wife who finds out that her husband is having an affair, and then she sees him kill the person that he's having an affair with, and then she has to decide what she wants to do with that information. And I thought, well, when does that happen? Like halfway through the book? But it happens within the first 7 pages, so this blurb is fine. And I also breathed a sigh of relief at that, because it's such a short book, you don't want to be giving away too much plot. This book is hilarious and also really twisted. As the blurb says, Inez suspects her husband of having an affair, so she follows him one evening. She sees him kill the woman he's gone to meet, and she sighs to herself and she says, you know, he's so hopeless at home. He doesn't do any housework. He doesn't know how to clean up after himself. I'm just going to have to clean up for him. And I won't tell him, because I want him to appreciate me, and I don't want to get involved in his business in a way that he feels like I'm interfering. So I'm just going to get rid of the evidence. I'm just going to clean his car, and I'm just going to go to her flat and see if he's left anything there and dispose of it. It's kind of like if Bree from Desperate Housewives found out that Rex was having an affair, although maybe morally she wouldn't want to clean up after him. Anyway, it definitely gave me Desperate Housewife vibes in many different respects. It's written in first person, but that doesn't mean that you get to feel what Inez is really feeling, because she still holds you at a distance. It's like she's just reporting what she's seeing. And at any point where something shocking happens and she must be feeling really distressed, it switches to third person. So you are removed from her head. She pushes you out, and you watch the narrator describing what's happening instead, or perhaps even her describing it in third person, because she doesn't want to talk to you that closely in that moment in case she accidentally gives something away and shows more emotion than she's comfortable with showing. And I thought that those switches were so clever. I enjoyed them a lot. And then something else that is really wonderful about this book is that punctuated throughout, we've got these conversations between their daughter and friends of hers, and their daughter is going through a really difficult time at the moment, but Inez and her husband are so engrossed in their own lives that they don't even notice what their daughter is going through, and they think that she's just a kid and she would never understand all the terrible things that's happening to them right now. But in actual fact, something awful is happening to her, and she is isolated and completely on her own. Every character in this book is giving off main character energy in the worst way possible. I thought that it was such a brilliant, concise, wicked book, and I recommend it wholeheartly. The next one I've decided to pick up is this, which is The Serial Killer's Daughter by Alice Hunter. I've already giggled a little bit at the beginning of this book. I'm about, what am I, 27 pages in, and there's already been a couple of things that I've thought, I'm not sure about that. So we're following Jenny and her husband Mark. Jenny is a vet, and we begin with her waking up one morning not knowing what she did the night before. And I thought, oh God, if we got another woman who's an unreliable narrator going back to the days of, you know, Gone Girl and Girl on the Train, and I feel very exhausted by those kind of things. But then her husband also can't remember what happened the night before, so I thought, okay, that's fine. There was a line which made me groan where she says that she is looking at his sexy brown torso. I just... oh dear. But apart from that, I am actually intrigued. So basically they've both woken up from a night that they can't particularly remember. Their alarms didn't go off for some reason. They're racing to get the kids to school, and then Jenny finds a dead cat has been left on her doorstep with a butterfly on top, and that signifies something to her, the butterfly. I imagine this relates in some way to her father. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, her father was a serial killer, and now I'm guessing she's in witness protection. I don't know, but that's all I've read so far. They've gone off to their respective jobs and their kids have gone off to school. Okay, as I said, I have to go out this morning, so please come with me. I have to go take some photos for this month's article that I'm writing for Toast. I write about books every month for them, and normally I would take a picture of the book that I'm reviewing. But this month I'm reviewing the Women's Prize shortlist, and with a whole stack of books, they tend to prefer just nature photography that's not related to the books at all, so that the photos don't seem too, I guess, cluttered. On Hampstead Heath at the moment, the azaleas and rhododendrons should be out. They normally come out around this time, and they are absolutely beautiful when they do. So I'm hoping that those are out, and if they are, I'll take some photos of those. If they're not, the bluebells are still out, so I'll take some photos of those instead. But anyway, let's walk swiftly and go try find some flowers to photograph before it starts raining and perhaps even thunderstorming. And let's hope I also get home in time to bring the washing in if it does. As I said, living life on the edge today. Let's go.
Hi, a very brief evening update to say that I am giving up on the serial killer's daughter. I was just getting the feeling with it, kind of the same way I felt about the TV show The Stranger, which kept on leaving breadcrumbs to entice you as a viewer, but you also knew there were so many convenient things happening and it seemed a bit far-fetched, but you kept watching anyway, and then by the end you just wished you hadn't. That's kind of how I feel about this one. I'm not into the I don't remember things. I've read a few too many books that use that, and maybe if this had been the first one I'd read that used that as a device, I would have found it more compelling, but I'm just not into that at the moment. And I did skip ahead to the end to see if my suspicions on who was doing the things was correct, and it was correct. So no, I'm gonna put this one down and I'll pass this on to someone else, and instead I'm gonna read The Curfew by T.M. Logan. I'm gonna start reading this tonight and I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. completely obsessed with this book. I read half of The Curfew by Tim Logan last night, and I started it quite late, but I could not put it down. This morning I woke up early so I could read a little bit more, and then I had to get up and get on with things. But I am very excited to read the rest of this tonight. I'm sure I'm going to finish it this evening, no matter how long it takes, because I need to know what happened. We are following the point of view of this dad, who at the beginning is awake at 3 a.m. because he's stressing because he doesn't think his son has come home. His son's recently finished his GCSEs and he went out partying with friends. He was given a midnight curfew, but he hasn't texted his parents, and as far as his dad's aware, he hasn't come home. The dad thinks, actually, maybe I'm just being ridiculous. Let me just go downstairs to his room. Maybe he came home and I just didn't hear him. So he goes downstairs without putting his glasses on and peers into his son's bedroom, sees his son asleep in his bed and thinks, what a ridiculous parent I am. My son is home, and he goes back to bed. Except it says, I wish I'd paid more attention at the end of that paragraph. So it is clear to the reader, this foreshadowing that the person in his son's bed is not his son. And then it completely stresses you out as a reader, waiting for them to realise that it's not his son. Lots of things went on the night before. Somebody is missing, and his son, Connor, is implicated in what went on the night before. He is the local GP, so he knows all of the local families, and his wife is a teacher, I think, so she also knows lots about the local families. I really like how technology is being used in this book, how everyone is messaging each other, how the different generations are using different types of social media. I think the dialogue is really realistic. I think it is extremely well written. It's also one of those books where you get to the end of the chapter and you think, I just need to read one more chapter, because it always leaves you on a cliffhanger, but not in a gimmicky way. So I am really respecting and enjoying this book, even though it is stressing me out immensely, and I will talk about it more when I finished it later. But now I really need to get on with work. Today I'm going to be writing the Toast article that I took photos for yesterday. This month I'm reviewing the Women's Prize shortlist, and I think maybe the article will have gone live by the time this video does. If it doesn't, just keep an eye on their magazine page, which I'll link down below, and it will be up shortly. As well as me reviewing the shortlist, we are giving away a set of the shortlisted books. So if you would like to win those 6 books, I think all you're going to need to do is read the article, comment and engage with it. But again, that will be linked in the description box down below. After that, I may film my April wrap up. I stacked up my April wrap up books and my next book haul books, and they're taking up quite a lot of room in my office. I'll insert a clip of that here. So I need to start filming those videos soon so that those books can go back on my shelf, and also so that I'm not just confronted with my life choices every second of every day when it comes to book buying. Okay, so I am gonna get on with work, and I will speak to you later. Hi, it's the evening, hence the terrible lighting, and I finished reading The Curfew. I raced through the end of this. I loved it, and I wasn't disappointed by the ending. I feel with crime and thrillers especially, so much hangs on the ending and how it all comes together and whether or not you feel satisfied. And it's that dance, isn't it, between wanting to be able to guess certain things but also wanting to be surprised. My pet peeve in books like this, in this genre, is when authors try and surprise the reader too much by making the guilty party be someone who you've perhaps either never met or met for 5 seconds in a slither of a scene near the beginning of the book, and that person was never referred to again. That can feel like a letdown. The worst feeling ever in a crime thriller book is when you hear the name of the person who's committed the crime and you think, wait, who is that? Like, that's not how you want to feel. You want to be like, oh, or I knew it. You know, you want to feel those things. I thought this all came together beautifully. I have bought a copy of this for my mum because I think she would really enjoy it, and I have ordered copies of 2 other books by Tim Logan. So I know that this video is kind of to get through the crime thriller books on my shelves, and I'm not helping by ordering 2 new ones, but I feel like it's worth it. So yeah, this is definitely the best thriller I have read in quite a long time. I recommend getting your mitts on it. And now I am going to start reading Amrita by Banana Yoshimoto. I'll read a couple of pages now because Mr. M is currently making dinner. He cooks our gustos. We get that every week, and then I tend to do the stuff that isn't gusto. And actually, if anyone has been looking to join Gusto or give it a go, they're one of the, you know, at-home meal kit services. I have a link which I'll put in the description box down below, and I think that that link gets you 65% off, which is a pretty good deal. Not ad or anything like that, it's just a link that I have as a customer. We pay for the boxes ourselves, but if you use that link, you get money off, 65%, and we also get a discount on a box ourselves. So win-win for everybody. But yeah, Gusto is a meal kit that we have been using for 6 years now, and we get it pretty much every single week, and I love it. I'll put some recipes on the screen that we've had recently. But yeah, so while he's cooking that, I'm going to start reading Amrita, and then we're going to watch the final episode of Race Across the World, because it's the final episode of season 3 tonight, and I'm rather excited. Okay, that's it for now. I will report back soon. Hi, it's a couple of days later now. It is the weekend and it is sunny outside. This is what happens in your 30s. You just get excited by weather where you can dry your clothes if you have a bit of outdoor space. But Mr. M is outside at the moment. He has been scarifying the lawn. When we moved in here last year, this place had been rented out for decades and no one had really done much with the garden. And Mr. M has been taking stuff out. He's now fixing up the lawn. He wants to get some maybe little crab apple trees to go at the back, like really small ones, just to give us a bit more privacy with the fence at the back and next door's garden. And yeah, that is his project at the moment. So he's having a fun time out in the sun, and I'm here to talk to you about books. So I have decided that Amrita by Banana Yoshimoto is not for me. This is translated from the Japanese by Russell F. Warsden. Yeah, and I used to love Banana Yoshimoto's writing. I particularly like her shorter books. NP is my favourite one that I have read by her, and I'm always been a bit worried about rereading it just because I don't want to not love it, and I fear that my reading tastes have changed so much. Not that that matters, because books mean what they mean to us at the time we read them, but I want to remember that book fondly. And yeah, I really did love that one. But all of her books, or at least as far as I'm aware, the majority of her books are from the 90s. Yeah, this was published in 1997, and I have actually recently bought this, which is her short story collection, which came out last year, but again is from the 90s. It feels very reminiscent of other books that I've read from that time. It feels very much like Murakami writing that I used to love, and I'm just not gelling with for whatever reason anymore. This also isn't a crime thriller, so yes, I have decided to part ways with this one. Last year I read her book Moshi Moshi and felt a similar thing with it, so maybe we're just not meant to be anymore and I should let go, and that's all right. I will check out her short stories because I do enjoy her shorter form stuff more, but this is about a family where one of the siblings has recently died, and it's not a mystery in the sense of who killed her or anything like that. It's just the family dealing with that. And I would say that if you enjoy Norwegian Wood by Murakami, that I think that you would also like this one. The writing is very beautiful in places, but it feels like it's trying to be very profound, and I'm not finding it profound. That's the best way that I can describe it. So no to that one. And then I decided to pick up the Lynda Plante book, and I think when I started this vlog I showed this one, which is Vanished, and I really wished that publishers would put numbers on spines, because I knew that I had bought the wrong one in the series. I didn't know that when I first bought it, but I did when I first hauled it. I thought that this was the second in the series, so I went ahead and bought Buried, which is the first one in the series. But having read this one, I then went to pick up number 2 and realised this is actually number 3. So I've ordered number 2, that's coming to me. I mean, it's a great way to get you to buy more books, isn't it? If you're not aware of what order things come in. Never mind, it's fine, because I enjoyed it and I want to continue reading the series. If I hadn't enjoyed it, that would have been a problem, but we can breathe a sigh of relief. As I said, I used to read loads of Lynda Plante. I can't remember the specific series that I read. She has written so many books. I actually didn't realise she was the writer of Widows, that film with Viola Davis that came out a couple of years ago. This is the first in a new series about DC Jack War, who's recently moved back to London because his wife got a job there. She is a doctor, and he's never been that into his career as a police officer, but he's hoping that that might change, and his boss is really trying to get him to fall in love with his job and wants him to yearn for promotion and all of that stuff. I did roll my eyes at the beginning of this book because there's a lot of telling, not showing, and it's a bit cheesy in places, and I did think, am I going to enjoy this? I am not sure. But the thing with Lynda Plante is that she knows how to put together a mystery with lots of elements and lots of characters, and it's always very compelling. So even though I wasn't sold on the character development at first, and I found it a bit cringy in places, I did get sucked in, and then I did get attached to the characters. The one odd thing about this book is that it does feel like a story of two halves. So we have got the modern day crime that is being investigated. There's been a fire at this cottage with lots of money being burnt, and there's a dead body there. And they think that this might be linked to historical crimes, one of those being someone who robbed some diamonds and one of them being a train heist. And the modern bit felt really, really modern. And then when they're talking about these old crimes, it felt very Agatha Christie, especially because their primary suspects from the beginning is this group of women who are kind of, not all of them, but most of them are sleeping with each other, and they've been sent to prison before, and they're very old school crime forgers, you know? And I loved that, but also it felt a little bit odd to be pairing these two things together. But even that, which I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get into at the beginning, I did find myself sinking into, and I did find myself believing it. And credit to the author for that, because I think that's a particularly hard thing to pull off. As well as this crime element, Jack is also doing research into his family past, and that was maybe a bit stereotypical, but also kind of intriguing. So there we go. The one thing that I hated about this book, there was one thing, and that is that there is a scene full of a lot of fat phobia. One scene, it doesn't come from a character, it comes from the narrator, which is extra infuriating. That one scene, it stayed with me and it wasn't nice, and I want to flag that for anyone who has that as a absolute red flag, no-go thing for their reading. So yeah, be aware that that is in there. Apart from that one scene, I very much enjoyed the rest of this book, cliches and all, and I think that I will continue, well, I am going to continue with the series because I have the third one here and I have ordered the second one too. I don't know what book I'm going to pick up next. I'm not sure, but when I know and when I've read some of it, I'll come back and talk to you. I am going on a walk tomorrow around Seven Oaks, which should be very beautiful. There should be some deer and some bluebells. So I will insert footage of that walk here, and then I will come back and talk to you about books soon. hi, we find ourselves in a place that I didn't expect to be in, and it's not a place I wanted to be in, but we're gonna move past it. I have DNF'd the last 4 books that I have started, and that's not fun for me, or for the books, or for anybody. But I think there's probably a good reason for it. I pulled all of the crime thrillers off my shelves that I could remember that were on my TBR, and obviously I probably started with the ones that I was most excited about, so it makes sense that there would be a tapering off when it comes to success rate with these books. I also think that if you read loads of books consecutively that are within the same genre, you don't necessarily become fatigued with the genre, and I haven't become fatigued. I still want to find some really good crime thrillers, and we're going to continue with this vlog until I do. But I think that you become really attuned to what you like and what you don't like, and I've definitely found myself, excuse the apt crime thriller phrasing, but becoming more cutthroat with books that aren't hitting the mark for me. So these 4 books, I don't have an issue with any of them, but just stylistically, they're not for me. The writing style is not what I'm particularly drawn to. So I've decided to part ways with My Perfect Sister by Penny Batchelor. I would recommend this for fans of Nancy Tucker's thriller. If you enjoyed this, you might love this. I've also decided to part ways with Lucky by Rachel Edwards. I did like her first book, I didn't love it, and sadly I don't think I'm going to love this one either. I'm also parting ways with How to Disappear by Gillian McAllister and Blind Goddess by Anne Holt. Now, Blind Goddess has on the back comparisons to Stieg Larsson, and I think that that can be quite lazy. I think it's just thrown around a lot when we're talking about Scandi crime fiction, but I do think that that's warranted here. I think that the style is quite similar, and maybe I would have enjoyed this if I'd read it when I read, you know, his trilogy, which was 15 years ago or so. It's just not the kind of book I tend to gravitate towards at this particular moment. And skip ahead about 30 seconds if you don't want to know anything about the future books in this series. But I did look up the series out of interest and discovered that the main character, the detective, is in an accident a few books in, and then she becomes a wheelchair user. But the language surrounding that is that she is wheelchair bound, confined to her wheelchair, not talking about wheelchairs as mobility aids and how great they are and how they help people access the world, and also that she becomes an embittered person, you know, the embittered disabled person. I'm not interested in that, so I'm going to part ways with this one too. And a 5th book is this one. I mentioned at the very beginning of the video that I wasn't sure if I was going to keep this one. This is The Last House on Needless Street by Katrina Ward, and someone on Instagram messaged me because I'd put up a list of things I don't enjoy in crime fiction, and I won't tell you which one it is because I don't want to ruin this book if you haven't read it and you want to read it. But someone messaged me saying, I know that one of the books on your TBR has a big trope thing in that you despise. Would you like me to tell you to make way for other books that you will love? And I said, yes, please do tell me. And it turned out to be this one. And when I heard what the trope was that was in here, I just thought, no, it's a trope that I have read so many times before. And again, if it was the first time I'd ever read it, maybe I would be interested, but I've read it too many times and I'm not interested anymore. Okay, so I'm gonna, again, make sure that that one goes to a better home. So I do not want to end this video here. I want to continue until I find at least one more crime thriller that I really love. And I should say, even though I gravitated towards reading the ones I was most excited about at the beginning, there are still some that I'm really, really excited by, but they're not out yet. So I don't want to read them, I think, in this video, because it feels a bit unfair to read things if they're not coming out imminently. I want to read them closer to release date. So we're going to continue until I find another book, at least one more, that I really like or love. So the next one I'm going to pick up is The Old Woman with the Knife by Gu Byung-mo, which is translated from the Korean by Chi-young Kim. And this, I think, like the Claudia Pineiro, is more of a literary thriller in that it's not heavy on plot. I think it's more of a character study. So I'm going to dive into this one, and hopefully this will be a turning point in this video and we'll get back to finding things that I really connect with. Be back soon. Oh, though actually what I'm going to do right now is go make some flatbreads for lunch. So come with me to the kitchen and let's make them. Hi, we find ourselves at another weekend. I think I said at the beginning I was just going to read what I wanted to read over the course of a week, but this is weekend 3, the end of week 2, and we're still going, and I don't quite want to stop yet because I'm having a good time. But I have finished reading The Old Woman and the Knife by Gu Byung-mo, which is translated from the Korean by Cheon Kim. This is a proof, so I'll just put it down and I'll insert the finished cover here. I enjoyed this book. It was very different from everything else that I read in this video. As I suspected, it was more of a character study, but it was definitely also a thriller. In this novel, we're following a woman who is known as Hornclaw. She is someone who works for a disease control agency, and we learn very quickly, or we would know from the blurb anyway, that this is not pest control in the normal sense. This is being a contract killer and exterminating people who've been deemed a virus to, I was going to say society, but poisonous to a particular individual who has a lot of money and would like them to disappear. So she is in her 60s. She's been doing this job for a long time. It's her entire identity. She doesn't really have people that she's close to anymore. She has a dog called Deadweight who she appears to love a lot, though she doesn't really express that, I think for fear of losing the dog. She is finding it difficult to accept that her body is not responding in the way that it used to because of her age. And she really wants to leave the job on her own terms, but there are a series of things that start happening which makes that seem less possible. This is a book that has some action in it, but it's really about why she started doing this job in the first place and why other people in her organisation started doing this job too. This book also looks at pacing, both the pacing of her life, but also the pacing of this genre. She wants to retire, but can she ever do that because of her line of work, meaning she's always looking over her shoulder? If she relaxes, does that mean she'll let her guard down? But also she's trapped within the genre of thriller, which does ramp up and up and up and always escalates, and can she get away from that? I think there's quite a few fun meta things going on in that respect, which I enjoyed. If I was going to do book maths on this book, I would say that it is like Killing Eve meets Lullaby by Leila Slimani meets the TV show Beef, because there's a lot of revenge stuff going on and it is funny in parts as well. So if the combination of those 3 things appeals to you, then I would definitely recommend checking out this book. But is this the end of the video? Because I said I wanted to read at least one more that I really enjoyed. It is not the end of the video because my mum has recommended a crime thriller book to me. And she doesn't tend to do that very often. It's normally the other way around, me saying, have you read this? Maybe you would like this. The book that my mum recommended to me is The Puppet Show by M.W. Craven. This is the first in a series. There are 5 out now. I'm not sure if that's all of them or if there will be more, but regardless, if I like this, there's a lot to sink my teeth into, which is always exciting. This is set in the Lake District and it's by a northern writer, and I'm always excited by that because I'm from Sunderland. I know you can't hear it in my voice, but I promise I am a Macam lass, and I adore the Lake District. I have lots of fond memories of it. I love going walking there, and why not taint those memories by inserting some gruesome murder into the equation? Sounds like my cup of tea. My mum and I have quite different tastes, but we do seem to enjoy similar crime thrillers. So let's see what I think of this one. I'm not even going to read you the blurb. I'm just going to read the book and then we're going to talk about it. That's my weekend plan. I'll see you in a bit. Hi, I have read The Puppet Show, so let us talk about that. And I want this video to go up this weekend, so we're also gonna run through everything that happened in this video. I have also perhaps purchased a few books, so we're gonna talk about that as well. I've been editing this vlog. It's probably gonna be over an hour long. And I did have a moment thinking, is it a bit confusing if you are new to my channel and you're watching this vlog where some clips I'm wearing wigs and sometimes I'm wearing hats? I don't think that is confusing, but just in case you are new, I have alopecia. I'm a bit bald, so I either wear hats or wigs. That's kind of it, just in case you were wondering. Okay, all right, so I read The Puppet Show and I really enjoyed myself. This is about a detective called Washington Poe. He has a dog called Edgar. It has been Eurovision recently, so yes, I have had the Edgar Allan Poe song just in the back of my head for a lot of this book. Not the book's fault at all, but that was kind of amusing. He is a slightly disgraced police officer. Everyone hates him. He's been suspended because he did something that wasn't really something he should have done. And that's a trope that I actually quite like in detective fiction. The disgraced police officer trying to save his reputation, goes a bit rogue. Everyone says that it's not cool, but he gets results, so everyone's kind of morally torn. It. Anyway, so he has been suspended. However, there is a series of murders going on and one of the victims turns up with his name, Washington Poe's name, on his body. So they have to call Poe back into the police force and say, we don't really want you to be here, but you know, you probably should be. Help us out. What does this mean? It is very well written. And as I said, it is set in the Lake District and we get lots of lovely rugged scenery described, and obviously the weather is at times pretty awful, and I really loved all of that. Washington is paired up with a woman called Tilly who works in the police force, and she is a civilian analyst. I think that is her job, yes. Tilly is autistic and she is getting bullied at work because of this. When Poe sees this happening, he's furious and he stands up for her and makes a big scene because he hates bullies. He used to be bullied himself. Then they are paired together on this case. Do I think this is the best representation of an autistic side character I've ever read? No, it's a little bit stereotypical in places, but I do really appreciate the way that ableism in the workplace is explored. I thought that was really good. And also it's very obvious that this book has been written with a lot of kindness. I very much enjoyed it, and I will be interested to see how their relationship develops as the series progresses, because I'm definitely going to continue reading it. And as for the plot itself, so people are being murdered and they are being left in these stone circles which do exist in the Lake District, and they're trying to work out what this pattern is, why it's happening now, whether it's related to an old crime. I really like how the landscape is almost a character in this text. I think the dialogue is realistic. I think that it is well paced, and also he knows how to end a chapter in a way that makes you just want to read one more. And I did guess who the person was, but about 3 pages before it was revealed, which I think is probably the perfect timing for you to guess, because then you have that sense of achievement, but you're not waiting for the book to catch up with you. And there was also an extra bit that I didn't guess, which I thought was really, really good. So yeah, I enjoyed this a lot, would heartily recommend it. There are audiobooks of this which I haven't listened to. I don't know if I'll check the rest out on audio or in print form, but I will be moving on to the second one soon. Okay, so let's do a run through. At the beginning, we started with over 20 books. And I have not read 13 in this vlog, but I have gone through 13. So I read and finished 6 of them and enjoyed those ones, and I'll go through those in a second. And then there were the 7 that I decided were not for me and have parted ways with. I won't go through those again because we don't need to dwell on things that I didn't like. So let's go through the ones that I did enjoy and tell you which ones were my favorites. Let's begin with the ones that were more character studies than anything else. So I really enjoyed reading The Old Woman and the Knife by Gu Byung-mo, translated from the Korean by Chi Young Kim. It was a slow burn, but I think there was lots to think about. But the one that I would recommend if you're looking for a slow burn thriller, more of a character study, is All Yours by Claudia Pineiro, which is the book about the wife who sees her husband killing someone and then decides she's going to secretly help him cover up the crime. I thought this was fantastic, would particularly recommend it for fans of Muriel Spark. I loved this one a lot. I had a fun time reading Close to Home by Cara Hunter, but to be honest, I haven't thought about it since I finished reading it. I may continue with the series at some point, but I won't be rushing to do so. I had a fun time with Buried by Lynda Plante, and I have bought the second in this series, which is called Judas Horse. The covers are so different. The third one looks more like this. I don't know why the second one looks like this. It's a mystery. It literally is a mystery. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Detective Jack War and what's going on in his personal life, but also the next crime he wants to solve. This is him looking into a series of murders in the Cotswolds, and it seems to be linked to a big group of people, and then he meets a woman called Charlotte Miles who is in some way connected to them, and then I think they're going to work together and use her as bait. But this is obviously quite a dangerous thing to do. So yeah, this one was fun, but my favourite police procedural that I read in this video was definitely The Puppet Show by M.W. Craven, which is the one that I just spoke about and will be continuing with. And my favourite thriller, as in following civilians and things happening to them, that I read in this vlog was The Curfew by T.M. Logan. This one was just so well written, and I was really, really obsessed with it. Like when I was working, I was thinking about it a lot and wanting to get back to it. So I have bought 2 more books that Tim Logan has written. All his books, I think, are standalones, which means you don't have to get fully invested in a series. So we've got The Catch, which I think is about a dad who's suspicious of his daughter's partner, thinks he's not good enough for her, but thinks there's something really dodgy going on. And I think he might be right. And then this is Trust Me, which is about a woman who's at a train station and is handed a baby. And I think the woman says, "Can you just look after my child for a second?" And she thinks she's nipping to the loo or something. But then she never comes back. And there is a note on the baby that says, "Do not take this child to the police. I'm trusting you." So that sounds stressful. So there's that. And then the final one that I bought is not linked to any of the ones that I've just talked about. But I heard about this book when I was researching online, which is called Cut to the Bone by Alex Khan. And this is about a YouTuber who goes missing. It says, "Ruby is a vlogger, a rising star of YouTube, and a heroine to millions of teenage girls. And Ruby is missing. But most adults go missing every day, and most of them turn up sooner or later. Then the video is uploaded, which is Ruby pleading for her life." I mean, obviously I have to read this book, so I will read that at some point and I will report back and let you know what I think. Thank you for joining me. If you made it to the end of this video, give yourself a pat on the back. I would love to know if you have read any of these or if you're thinking about checking any of them out now that I've spoken about them. I'll list the books in the description box down below. If you're new to my channel and you enjoyed this and you would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. If you like my content and you would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, that would be very much appreciated, because support over there allows me to keep creating free content for everybody on here and funds my time making it accessible by creating captions and all of that good stuff. I hope that you're all doing all right, and I will see you next week. Sending lots of love. Bye.